We got to make sure we do facts, not feelings, because when feelings get involved, it really is challenging.
If everybody operates within their role and their true vision is to just move the agency forward, that's where we need to be.
We're not having our street corn while we're having a conversation about it, right? At the family barbecue. We're leaving the barbecue at home and we're leaving the work at the work. I guess I should have asked if everybody was ready, but surprise!
We're ready. Hey, if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready.
Ooh, that's some good advice. Thank you, Bobby. Well, I am Stephen Harrington Decano. I am the performance coach. I'm not that, I'm So let's rewind that real fast. We're a team. I'm the performance coach partner. I can't even talk today.
We can talk for you. I am Therese, the operations and training coordinator. Also a performance coach virtually, doing a lot of stuff with everybody in podcasts and videos. And I'm happy to be here with Stephen. And it's Bobby's turn.
Hi, I'm Bobby Fernandez, and I am a performance coach here at Agency Performance Partners. Maybe not the performance coach, but I definitely take my shot at trying. And so I'm excited to be here with the fabulous Therese and Stephen today to talk about these challenges.
Maybe I was just dreaming big. Like, I want to be the consultant.
You're the one.
I could be your consultant.
Yes.
Right? I could be the consultant for your agency.
Yes, you can.
Bobby could be the consultant for your agency. Therese could be the coordinator and consultant for your agency. And we all have a varied amount of skill set and different experiences in the industry, which I think is amazing and why we work so well together.
Absolutely.
Today,
I was going to start speaking in Spanish, but I don't know. You guys wouldn't understand what I was saying.
I can find out how to get to the club. I can order beer, which I don't drink, and I can get new shoes.
Hoy vamos a hablar de cosas que son muy difíciles de estar en una agencia que es con familia. Muy difícil, pero vamos a ver. Okay.
I can tell you when my dad's really upset with me chasing me around the house with the chancla. That's about it.
So, family's fun. Family's great. We're going to talk today about the top 5 family-run insurance agency challenges. I think this was near and dear. Years ago, I worked in a small agency. It was the two owners actually, who were good friends. One of them decided it was time for them to leave, so the other one bought them out, and I ended up helping run the agency. It was me, the owner, and sometimes 1 or 2 other people. And the kids wanted to have nothing to do with the agency. Right? Like they were like, nope, living our best lives, doing our own thing. Mom, you're crazy for doing insurance. But it was always on my shoulders that if something happened to mom, like they to this day are still instructed that if something happens to her, they have to call me and they're going to write me a fat check to deal with the discrimination of the agency.
The chaos that ensues afterwards.
Chaos that ensues because they don't want to, the kids want to have nothing to do with it, but they want the money from it. And mom knows that I'll have her best interests. And as a consultant, we'll come in and be like, okay, cool. Here's what we're going to look at. Here's how we're going to evaluate. Here's what we're going to do. And we'll probably have to work with some other people to get a true valuation to make sure it's fair for the family or whatever. But it's kind of one of those weird things that you never thought was going to be a life skill till it happened. So I'm not a member of a family, but I feel like I'm part of the family because I'm part of their succession plan. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's sometimes where we struggle in agencies is it's like, well, they're not family.
And then you have the agencies who have all the siblings. And then some of the siblings are like, no, that person can't be a leader because they're not part of the family. And so you have this dynamic that goes on in agencies that have family members. Some of the family members are all on board and want to be part, and other family members don't want anything to do with it.
And I think we have to look at like, who's actually doing what at the agency as well? Because I think there's a lot of feelings. We're going to use feelings quite a bit in this conversation today, like all the family feelings, who feels what. I think a lot of times things are unclear because they just kind of worked and dad or mom or whoever made enough money to pay everybody. And everybody got a piece of the pie, whether they were truly working in the business or not. Yeah. And I think that sometimes as it comes time for mom or dad to move on to the next phase of life, or uncle or whatever, and they want to start retiring, then the family starts getting like, what do we do? Like, we've always had this money. Now it's going to go away. How do we make this continue working? Now we have to pay dad. Dad's always paid us. And so I think we really have to look, first of all, is what is a good succession plan? What does that look like? Does everybody get a piece of the pie? Do we have to buy out more than just dad and get some siblings off the payroll? Do they get equity and they get like a portion of the profits every year? Or do we just leave them on payroll and write them a paycheck and just understand they're not going to do anything? Or does everybody have a clearly defined role that anybody can be let go if they're not following what's best for the agency itself, not just because you're family?
I think not having a plan with shares, like you mentioned, giving shares away, the shares being different per kid depending on their birth order or how much they're involved in the agency. You have to be very, very careful with that because it causes a lot of conflict. And because you're family and you're not necessarily, they don't look at it, hey, we're family, we're not in a professional business environment, which they need to stop doing that. They need to look at the work and the agency as a successful professional business environment, and family stuff needs to stay in the family over here, because when you start bringing in that family stuff and the dynamics of the kids, just as well as I do with brothers and siblings, that we fight as kids. And I think sometimes that's brought into an agency and they just continue to fight like siblings, even though they're in a professional environment, which is a huge no-no. You can't do that. You can't come into an agency and see it as, battleground, like you were playing hide and seek as a kid, right? So they need to be very mindful of that.
I think sometimes too, like dad or whoever the current owner is that's a member of the family is just like, you know what? I'm making you a sweet deal. Here you go. Like, I want this to be your legacy now. It's provided good for me. And then we get the people that maybe weren't quite prepared to be a leader. And dad's like, but if it fails, I'm going to have to step back in. And I'm like, dude, you literally sold your business to your kid. Like, it's not yours anymore. They're like, I did this for 45 years. It's mine. Like, well, technically you sold it and you stayed on as an employee, right? So really it's not yours anymore. And if it fails, then it's your kid, not you. But I'm going to have to come in and sweep it back up.
That's the whole reason you have to have a plan and you have to execute on that plan and have a strategy. And it takes a lot of communication. It takes a lot of, checking our egos and getting those things out of the way so that we can truly focus on what is the best thing for our agency. And a lot of times in your agency, it's not just you and your family. Some agencies it is, but a lot of times you have other people that are dependent upon the success of your agency. And so we have to get out of our own way and really communicate a plan, because we need to have a plan for those people. They've committed their lives to us too. And so we've got to be able to have a strategy there.
One of the things that I love when we're doing assessments with agencies or getting to know agencies and through the assessment process is when we interview every employee, and it's a legacy agency, like family, like third generation, second generation. We have the old school employee that kind of the poo-poo, like the poo-poo face, as I like to call it. It's just like I've been here for 49 years and that's how I've always done it and that's how it's always going to be. And maybe I use a harsh smoker voice because I swear they spend their break chain smoking in their car, or life's just been hard.
Well, they probably started at the agency when smoking inside the agency was still legal.
Yes, they did.
They were 16.
When they were 16, yeah. And they very much did. But getting a team that wants to move forward or getting a team that will move forward, I think is part of the battle as well, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to adapt to the technology as we're finding it, and we're having to stay current. And sometimes it's like, well, I could never let that person go. They were here before my dad even had the agency, or they've been here longer than any of the rest of the family. I'm like, okay, cool. So we can either just continue writing them a paycheck and we'll let them have their own little role in the corner, or do we find a better way to use those funds? And it's not that we try to get rid of anybody, right? But we try to coach and train and decide, are you going to move forward with the way the agency's going? Are you okay with accountability and clearly defined job roles?
Mhm.
Or is the owner okay with somebody that's not going to perform to the same level as everybody else?
Well, and I
That's,
think it's what you brought up, Stephen, is that, there's clearly defined job roles. And a lot of times within an agency, I've been to other agencies where, maybe you have some more tenured staff that, they have this deep understanding and breadth of knowledge that some of our other staff don't have. And to put them in a role where there's mentoring, where they can, download that data from their brain and bring, they're kind of the historian of the agency, if you will. And so if they're on board and they can adopt the changes, we don't want to lose that, but maybe their role transitions into something else that becomes much more beneficial to drive the agency and move the needle.
I'm working with an agency right now with which I love, that one of the person's been there longer than the last owner. They were like, I worked for so and so, but they have an open mind, right? And they admit that they aren't great at everything, but they're really good at 80% of the work. And her role is to train the new leaders, which are not family members, in everything that she does and learn from them different ways to do things as well. So it's kind of a two-way street. So every week they meet individually, they meet as a team, and it's that constant communication back and forth of, this is what we're going to do moving forward. How can we implement it? How can we work through it? Is this a clear process? Is everybody on board? What would you do? And I think that that's really important. And we're not just promoting family because they're family. We're actually building a leadership team that works well for the agency as a whole and still honors the family legacy. And we're honoring some of those legacy roles by allowing them to give their feedback and input and be valuable, but use them, like you said, for what they're really good at.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we also need to be really careful with, people that are outside the family and different members of the family promising things to people outside the family, because at one of the agencies when we were working with, one of the guys that's not family, his goal in the future was to become a partner in the agency, but the dad still owns the agency. The kids have some shares in some way, shape, or form. But one of the kids was like, oh, yeah, you're like giving him, saying, yes, you're going to be part of this. You're going to be on the leadership team. And he didn't really have the say to do that. So you have to be careful of, what you're promising as a family member. You can't promise jobs and promise things without talking to the rest of the family members that are part of the leadership team. You have to make sure that you're communicating and you're not making sole decisions that aren't yours to make. So you have to be careful of that as well. I mean, I think the fact that family members and parents and kids, they have it's a locally owned business, which is fabulous. And I think some of them have the same goal and the same ending in mind. But I think where their job descriptions come in is where you have to really draw the line and be very specific and strategic about how you do things. Because if not, then you end up with feelings instead of facts. And we got to make sure we do facts, not feelings, because when feelings get involved, it really is challenging.
Well, there's so much to do at an agency, right? I mean, there's so many roles that need and responsibilities that need to happen just for our agency to be able to run smoothly. When we have those clearly defined roles and responsibilities, we can all really work within our zone that we love to work and really be able to push our agency forward. And so we need to start, if it's Stephen's job to hire new people, then when I have a problem with my hiring funnel, then I need to go to Stephen. I can't be having the side chatter with Therese. We need to be saying, okay, Stephen, this is the problem. Or, if I'm the sales manager, but I'm not driving enough new growth to the agency, then Stephen and Therese need to come to me and say, okay, how do we do this? Not try to provide solutions outside of what is everybody's role. So if everybody operates within their role and their true vision is to just move the agency forward, that's where we need to be.
One of the things too that I love is like regularly scheduled meetings with an agenda. Like twice a month, all of us leaders or all the family members are going to get together and we're going to meet and we're going to talk about these 6 items.
Yes.
It's not emotional. Here's our goal. Where are we? Is it happening? What do we need to do to fix it? Right. And if you have that agenda and it's fairly consistent, it helps to remove some of that. And everybody then hears the information. I
think you have to honor those meetings, right? You have to honor that. You have to make them important. You have to defend that time. You have to stay on track, on agenda. Don't get off track. And if we can't handle something, then we revisit it at a later date. We're not going to take it home and have family dinner over the agenda items that we did not complete during our leadership meeting.
We're not having our street corn while we're having a conversation about it, right? At the family barbecue. We're leaving the barbecue at home and we're leaving the work at the work.
We also need to be careful with chat messages when that comes into, do we have a group chat for the agency that we're not using wisely? We have to be careful with that because in chatting each other on cell phones, when you're family and you're chatting about work and, gossiping, it can really get really sticky. So we have to be very careful of that.
I think another major issue too is finance there. Like, should we just rip that Band-Aid off and call it like it is? I think finances is huge too, right? Like acquisitions were huge in the last 2 years. That's one of the reasons why I'm now a full-time consultant. The agency I was at got acquired. Great. We had a succession plan already in place of who was going to do what. And my role wasn't necessarily needed anymore on purpose. And that was great because I knew this was the path I wanted to go down. But if we look at expenses because of acquisition, suddenly line items start coming off because you want your books to be amazing, right? You're looking at your EBITDA, you're looking at all these things. So does everybody get a company car anymore? Does everybody get a gas card? Does everybody get a whatever? Are we paying for everybody to go to a conference, including their spouses and kids? Or is it just suddenly immediate people that did that?
You mean I get paid on my production if I'm a producer?
What?
Is that a thing?
You get paid for production.
I just get paid whatever I want?
What? But I think that sometimes in the family agency, and I'm not saying all the time, and I'm not saying it's everybody, so don't send me any haterade, friend. But I think sometimes
we use our agency operating funds for things that are not necessarily meant for operating our agency.
Right. And the accountant can probably justify it, and the IRS knows no different and whatever. I'm not talking legal or illegal
right,
anything. Sometimes, like, is the yacht membership or the boat club membership really a valid business expense?
Well, and then I want to touch back on, you mentioned going to a conference, maybe the best expense really is for your, commercial team lead to go to that conference instead of the, brothers, spouses, children, and family, right? Like, what is really, and this is what we really need to be honest with ourselves about. What is moving the needle for our agency? And what are we focused on? What do we need to be focused on? And how are we supporting our vision when we're making those decisions?
I think what we really have to get down to the bottom of, and it's more for compliance and clarity, because clarity is kind, is what is a valid business expense and what's not? What is the expectation of everyone? Sometimes we have to have those difficult conversations. Because if I'm out spending hundreds of dollars a month on office supplies and 2 other people are like, we didn't need any of those things. Why do you keep buying pens? We have 1,000 of them. And it's just because I like to spend money, can that cause a problem in the agency? And if a non-family member was in charge of the finances and doing the same thing, would the family then become upset at that person, even though they didn't become upset at the member of the family? So I think we have to really get back to, you need a personal bank account and a corporate bank account. And we need to be really careful that we're using the right card for the right transactions, right? And I know sometimes there's a boo-boo. Like, I am guilty. I have made a major Amazon purchase with my corporate card on accident, right? And I had to call and be like, oh my goodness, what do I do? How do I send the money back to you? Like, and we had
Like,
to
speaking
wash
of
it
which,
out.
where are my shoes?
Right.
We all do it every once. You forget to
But
change
it's
the.
unintentional, right?
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think the new shed for my backyard is a great business expense because someday I can store some files in it.
I made the
No.
mistake of buying a bunch of flights on my personal card.
Yeah.
And I was
And
like,
now they're expensive
so
now.
I had to, and it already went out because it was a debit card. And I'm like, oh boy, here
Yeah.
we go. So, I mean, we all make mistakes, but we need to, pay attention to those and make sure that we're following guidelines and not spending money where it shouldn't be spent.
And I love to make jokes about it just to make it a little more memorable, right? But I think some of us know exactly what we're talking about. And if Sharice, Bobby, and I are all family and we're all running an agency together, and I go buy a new shed and Sharice doesn't even get a new pair of shoes, is there some hurt feeling?
Right.
Right. So we really need to look at what's a valid business expense, what's not. Let's code it correctly. And who knows? Like, maybe we need to sell. Maybe nobody in the family has the equity or assets that are needed to buy out the other partners or the managing partner from the agency, right?
Or
Maybe-
if
There's no interest.
Well, and if they can't get along and it's ruining the family, maybe it's time to sell for that reason too.
Right.
You want your family is way more important than your business. I know, some people may not agree with that, but you definitely want to try to keep your family in good standing. And if the business is ruining that, it may be better to, move away from that.
Sharice, I'm the oldest child with the most insurance experience. It's going to be the way I say, or it's not going to happen.
I want a new shed.
No sense for either of you. I'm the oldest.
And I think what it all boils down to too, and we've alluded to this a couple of times, is that maybe someone has spent a long time building this legacy, and other people may agree to come in and help to take over because maybe there's some sense of guilt, or they feel like there's this responsibility or this burden that is on their shoulders, and they don't feel like they can share the fact that this is not what fires them up and that this was not their dream. And so I think we need to be open to hearing that feedback too. We need to be able to say, if someone is not interested, they're not necessarily gonna love our agency the way that we've loved our agency and continue the legacy in the way that we had hoped.
I personally have never wanted to own an insurance agency. Like, I love running them. I love fixing them. I love building them to be the best that they can be. But when I think of the day in, day out of owning an agency, I'm just bored. Like, I was like, if I had to pick one thing that would bore me to tears, it would be to day in, day out, have to run my own insurance agency. Let me run 25 of them for other people. Let me build leaders. Let me share my knowledge and whatever. Like, that's what fuels me. But at this point in my life, I would cry if I had to own an agency and just be there 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week or whatever, just to run an agency.
Running an agency takes a very unique type of individual you guys are doing a great job out there in insurance land, and it takes, hard work and dedication. And those are really special individuals that should be commended for, the hard work that they've done, and they should be proud of that for sure.
Please don't spend 80 hours though. That's a lot. That means your family's not getting your time.
It means you need us.
That week.
Yes.
Yes, it means you need us.
You need us. We're here for solutions.
We are. So, I mean, when it comes to the end of the day, a lot of times working with a consultant, working with a CPA, working with a financial planner, or somebody to help set goals for the agency, a CFO, right? Sure. And I'm not saying APB is not amazing, because we are, and you can work with us. You can reach out, web, online, however you want. We're happy to work with you in a bunch of different ways. But we're not a perfect solution for all the pieces of the agency sometimes either. Sometimes you're missing that financial piece, or sometimes you're missing true processing or what have you. And we have process packs and job descriptions, and we have ways to help you in a lot of different ways. And we're happy to talk to you about that. But I think that the first step is just making a call and being like, hey, I want to talk to somebody. What should we be doing? What are we doing wrong? What are we doing right? And I think that that's the hardest step a lot of times, especially for a family-run agency, is letting an outside set of eyes look in, because they don't want to be judged. It's something that they've worked hard for, and they don't want it to be torn apart or dismantled. And guys, that's not what we do, right? We're here to hold your hand and talk through things. We don't make decisions that aren't in your best decision. And it's all a conversation about what needs to happen and how.
And I was going to say, sometimes people wait on succession planning because they think, oh, I'm not ready because I'm not ready to retire. But we need to be working on this ahead of time. Don't wait until I'm ready to grab my blue chair and go sit on the beach with my cocktail. We need to be thinking about, how are we getting Bobby to that point now? We can't wait until it's too late.
So we need to have a plan. It needs to be solid. We need to remove some of the feeling. And by having clear expectations and accountability, that's one of the ways to help remove some of the feeling, right? We need a clear goal, an idea of where things are going. We need a succession plan that's clearly laid out, along with steps and benchmarks to measure along the way. We need to look at how can we get our staff in alignment with what that succession plan looks like, and or what is the legacy of the agency going to be for the leadership. And maybe it is hiring people to run the agency and just having like the family be a board of directors that checks in once a quarter on the financials, and they get their dividend checks and whatever. There's no right or wrong answer, but you need to have the conversation about it. You need to start now. You need to set the goals and ideas of what you want for your legacy of your agency.
I agree. I still want my shed.
Here.
Shed. I had to repay my shed, Therese, because it wasn't a valid business expense. Come on now.
You didn't put your home office in there? And
well, no, not yet.
You and the chickens?
Me and the chickens, yeah. So guys, if you need help or want to have a conversation, reach out to us. We're happy to have a conversation with you. We have lots of tools available online as well. We have blogs, we have podcasts, we have video, we have anything and everything that you could probably think of. If you don't know how to find it or need some help or just want to talk to somebody, we are here for you. So until next time, toodaloo.
Gonna stay ready.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.